The siege of the wanderers, music. The black void of space stretched endlessly in all directions as the Talan refugee fleet drifted through the darkness like fragile leaves caught in an invisible current. 15 vessels moved in tight formation, their crystalline hulls reflecting the distant starlight with a pale greenish glow. Inside these ships, 5,000 souls held their breath in their hope, praying that salvation lay somewhere beyond the next star system. Commander Vareth stood motionless on the bridge of the lead vessel, the wandering light. His silver skin had lost much of its natural luminescence over the past months, dulled by exhaustion and the weight of responsibility that pressed down on his shoulders like a physical burden. His six-fingered hands gripped the edge of the navigation console as he stared at the holographic display, showing their current position in the galactic rim. The Talvan were a gentle species known across civilized space as master musicians and healers. Their home colony on Talvos Prime had been a center of art and medicine for 3 centuries, visited by countless species seeking either cultural enlightenment or medical treatment for ailments that defied conventional cures. But that was before the blight came, before the fungal infection from deep space had consumed their world, turning their beautiful gardens into toxic wastelands and their crystal cities into crumbling ruins. Vareth managed to evacuate only a fraction of his people before the atmosphere itself became poisonous. 5,000 survivors out of millions. The guilt nodded at him constantly, but he pushed it aside. The living needed him to be strong, to guide them to safety, to find them a new home where they could rebuild their shattered civilization. Navigation Officer Tilris approached him cautiously, her large violet eyes filled with concern. Commander, we are approaching the Threshold Nebula. Beyond that lies the protection of the Galactic Assembly's neutral corridor. 2 more days and we will be safe. Vareth allowed himself a small nod. 2 more days. After 4 months of running, hiding, and navigating through the most dangerous regions of space to avoid detection, they were almost free, almost safe. He wanted to believe it so badly that it hurt. The alarm shattered that fragile hope like glass hitting stone. Red warning lights exploded across every console on the bridge. The crew members gasped and shouted as their instruments screamed warnings of imminent danger. Vareth's heart, which beat in a rhythm unlike any human heart, began racing with a speed that made his vision blur. At the edges, multiple contacts emerging from warped space. Till screamed, her normally calm voice breaking with terror. They are surrounding us. Commander, we are completely surrounded. Vera's eyes locked onto the tactical display, and what he saw there turned his blood to ice. 16 massive warships materialized out of nowhere, appearing in a perfect circle around the Telvan convoy. They emerged from the fabric of space itself like predators stepping out of shadows, their arrival calculated and precise. These were not the elegant vessels of civilized species. These ships were brutal and ugly, built from dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their hulls bristled with weapon emplacements, and their proud designs resembled the open jaws of ancient beasts. Vareth recognized them immediately, and that recognition brought with it a despair so deep that he could barely stand. Drather, hunter vessels, pirates, slavers, the nightmare of every peaceful species in the galaxy. The Drath were legends of Cruelty, a civilization built entirely on conquest and exploitation. They had terrorized the outer regions of known space for over 1,000 years, capturing weaker species and selling them to the highest bidders in the illegal slave markets that operated in the lawless zones between star systems. Their reputation was so fearsome that most species simply surrendered immediately rather than face their wrath. The hunter ships began to circle the convoy slowly, deliberately. They moved with the confidence of predators who knew their prey had no escape. Occasionally, one vessel would fire a plasma bolt that streaked past the tail-end ship close enough to make the hull shudder but not close enough to cause damage. These were warning shots, calculated to inspire maximum terror. Transmission crackled through on all frequencies. The image that appeared on Vera's view screen made several of his crew members cry out in fear. The Drather commander was a massive creature, easily twice the size of a Talon. His reptilian face was covered in dark green scales, and his eyes glowed with an amber fire that spoke of intelligence and cruelty in equal measure. 4 horns curved back from his skull, and when he smiled, he revealed rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh. Taline vessels, the creature rumbled in a voice like grinding stone. I am Commander Krell of the Drather hunting fleet. Your ships, your cargo, and your lives now belong to me. You will power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in the immediate destruction of 3 ships. Compliance will earn you a slightly less painful introduction to your new existence as property. Krell paused and his terrible smile widened. You have 15 minutes to decide your fate. I suggest you spend that time saying goodbye to your freedom, because you will never know it again. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Verif looked around at his crew. He saw tears streaming down faces. He saw hands trembling. He saw the light of hope dying in eyes that had already seen too much suffering. These were healers and artists, not warriors. They had no weapons, no training, no way to fight back against the monstrous force that had trapped them. His mind raced through possibilities, searching desperately for some solution, some trick, some way out. But every path led to the same conclusion. They were helpless. The Drather would take them separate families, sell them to different buyers across the galaxy. Many would die in the brutal conditions of slave camps. The children would grow up knowing only servitude. The elderly would be discarded as worthless. Verith made his decision. He moved to the communications console with steady steps, though his heart was breaking. His fingers danced across the holographic controls as he activated the emergency distress beacon, broadcasting on every known frequency across multiple dimensions of space. This is Commander Verith of the Talvan refugee fleet, he said, his voice surprisingly steady, despite the despair crushing his spirit. We are under attack by Drather raiders. In Sector 947 of the Outer Rim, we have 5,000 civilians aboard our vessels, including 800 children. We have no weapons and no means of defense. If anyone receives this message, if anyone is listening, we beg you for help. Please, we are begging you. He broadcast the message knowing it was futile. The nearest civilized system was weeks away at maximum warp. The galactic assembly had no military force, and no species would risk confrontation with the Drather over refugees. The message would reach sympathetic ears eventually. But by then the tail line would be scattered across 100 slave markets, lost forever. The minutes crawled past with agonizing slowness. Krell did not rush. He understood the psychology of terror. He wanted the tail line to marinate in their fear, to feel completely hopeless before he took them. It made the slaves more docile, easier to manage and sell. The draw ships continued their slow, menacing circle. They moved like sharks, ancient and patient, knowing their prey could not escape. Weapons charged and discharged in rhythmic patterns, creating a symphony of threat that could be felt even through the vacuum of space. Watch families huddling together on the video feeds from other ships. He saw parents holding children. He saw the elderly preparing themselves for whatever came next. He had failed them all. He had promised to lead them to safety, and instead he had led them into a trap. The 15 minutes ended. Krell's face appeared on the view screen again, his expression one of cruel amusement. Time has expired, Tailing Commander. What is your answer? Will you surrender peacefully, or must I demonstrate the consequences of defiance? Choose now. Varith opened his mouth to speak the words of surrender that tasted like poison on his tongue, but before any sound could emerge, every sensor on every ship detected something impossible. A new contact was appearing from slip space, materializing directly between the Drather fleet and the Tailline convoy. Krell's expression shifted from amusement to confusion. What is this? He demanded. A ship emerged where nothing had existed moments before. It was unlike anything either the Drather or the Tailline had ever encountered. The vessel was sleek and gray, built with angular efficiency and covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. It was roughly half the size of a Drather hunter ship, compact and clearly designed for speed and maneuverability. Varith stared at the unknown vessel with a mixture of confusion and desperate hope. Someone had actually come, against all probability, against all logic. Someone had heard his distress call and responded. The strange ship broadcast message on an open channel. The voice that spoke was clear and confident, with an accent that Varith had never heard before. It spoke in standard galactic common, which meant whoever they were, they had at least some contact with civilized space. This is Captain Sarah Chin of the Earth Coalition ship. Resolute, we detected your distress signal and have arrived to provide assistance. Please state the nature of your emergency, and we will render aid. Varith felt tears spring to his eyes. He had never heard of it. He had no idea what humans were or where they came from, but someone had come, after all. The darkness, someone had actually answered his desperate prayer. Commander. Krell stared at his tactical display with narrowed eyes. The unknown vessel did not appear in any Drath database. Its energy signature was unfamiliar. Even its hull composition registered as materials his sensors could not properly identify, but he noted its size and dismissed his brief flicker of concern. This tiny ship posed no threat to his fleet. He activated his communication system and responded with the full weight of his authority. Unknown vessel. This is Commander Krell of the Drather hunting fleet. These Tailline refugees are now Drather property under the ancient rights of salvage and conquest. This territory belongs to us. You will leave immediately or be destroyed alongside these worthless creatures. This is your Only warning, there was a pause of several seconds. Krell imagined the alien captain realizing the magnitude of his error and preparing to flee with all possible speed. That was what always happened when lesser species encountered draw their power. The human captain's response came through crystal clear on all channels, and the words she spoke would echo through galactic history. Negative, Commander Krell. These people called for help and we answered. We don't abandon those in need. If you want them, you're going to have to go through us first. Krell felt his blood begin to boil with rage. This tiny ship crewed by an unknown species was openly defying him. In all his decades of commanding the hunting fleet, no one had dared speak to him with such disrespect. This human and her crew had just signed their own death warrants. Destroy that vessel. Krell ordered his fleet. Make it slow. I want them to understand their mistake before they die. 6 Drath. Their hunter ships broke formation and accelerated toward the human vessel with weapons powering up. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. 6 of them together represented overwhelming force. Varith watched in horror as the massive warships moved to attack. Human ship was so small compared to them. These brave strangers who had come to help were about to be annihilated. And it was because they had tried to save his people. But then something happened that no one expected. The human ship's hull began to glow with a blue-white light that pulsed with increasing intensity. Energy readings spiked across every sensor, reaching levels that should have been impossible for a vessel of that size. The geometric patterns on its hull shifted and reconfigured, and weapon ports opened that had been invisible moments before. Captain Chen's voice came through one final time before the battle began, and there was steel in her tone. All hands, battle stations. Show them what happens when you threaten the innocent. Show them why you don't mess with Earth. The human ship shot forward with acceleration that defied physics, and the darkness of space erupted into light and fury. When humanity answers, the human ship moved like nothing Commander Krell had ever witnessed in 4 decades of space combat. The ECS Resolute accelerated with such sudden force that his tactical officer actually gasped in disbelief. The vessel didn't just move fast, it moved with a precision and agility that seemed to mock the laws of physics that govern conventional spacecraft. The 6 Draw hunter ships that had broken formation to attack opened fire. Simultaneously, plasma cannons erupted, and brilliant streams of superheated energy that should have vaporized the small human vessel instantly. Missile batteries launched their payloads and synchronized volleys designed to overwhelm any point defense system. The combined firepower was enough to crack Small Moon. The Resolute simply wasn't there anymore. The human ship jinked sideways with impossible speed, evading the plasma streams by mere meters. Its point defense systems came online, and the space around it filled with precisely targeted laser fire that intercepted every single missile before they could arm their warheads. Explosions created a brief flower of light that faded quickly in the vacuum, leaving the Resolute completely untouched. Captain Sarah Chin sat in her command chair, watching the tactical display with calm, focused eyes. Her bridge crew worked with practice, efficiency, their hands moving across holographic controls with the confidence born from hundreds of combat simulations and real engagements across multiple Star Systems, Helm Evasive Pattern Delta. 7 Weapons, I want a demonstration shot. Across the lead vessel's bow, let's see if they're smart enough to take a hint. Shin ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had faced death before and refused to blink. Resolute spun on its axis and released a single weapons burst from its main cannon. The weapon was unlike anything in the Drath arsenal. It fired a concentrated beam of particles, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, compressed and focused through technology that human scientists had perfected over centuries of warfare and innovation. The beam lanced out and struck empty space exactly 10 m in front of the lead Drather Hunter ship. Energy discharge was so intense that it created a temporary dimensional ripple, a visible distortion in space itself, that made every sensor on every ship scream warnings. The message was clear. That shot had been a warning. The next one would not miss. On his command bridge, Krello stared at his displays with growing unease. His 6 ships should have destroyed that tiny vessel in the first exchange. Instead, they hadn't even scratched its hull. And now, this unknown weapon had demonstrated power that exceeded anything in his experience. He had never seen technology that could create dimensional disruptions with a single shot. All ships concentrate fire, overwhelmed their defenses. Krello roared, his voice betraying the first hints of genuine concern. The 6 hunter ships adjusted their formation and opened fire again, this time coordinating their attacks to eliminate any possible escape vector. Hundreds of weapons discharged simultaneously, filling the space around the human ship with enough destructive energy to sterilize a planet's surface. The Resolute responded by doing something that made absolutely no sense. According to known physics, the ship activated what appeared to be some kind of defensive barrier, a shimmering field of energy that materialized around its hull like a second skin. The Drather weapons struck this barrier and simply dissipated, their energy absorbed and redistributed harmlessly into space. Shield integrity at 97%, the Resolute tactical officer reported calmly. Their weapons aren't even scratching us. Captain Chin allowed herself a small smile. Return fire disabled. Don't destroy. I want them to carry a message back to their friends, the human ships. Weapon systems came fully online, and the Drather learned what true technological superiority looked like. The Resolute's main cannons fired in rapid succession, each shot precisely calculated and devastatingly effective. The first beam struck the lead Drather Hunter ship's primary engine array, and the massive vessel lurched as its propulsion system exploded internally. The second shot took out another ship's weapons grid, leaving it floating helpless and defenseless in space. But it was the third weapon system that truly terrified Krello and his fleet. The Resolute launched a spread of what appeared to be small missiles, but these projectiles behaved unlike any conventional ordnance. They moved with intelligent purpose, dodging defensive fire and adjusting their trajectories mid-flight. When they struck their targets, they didn't explode in the traditional sense. Instead, they released an electromagnetic pulse so powerful that it fried every electrical system within a 100 m radius. 2 more dragged their ships went dark instantly, their crews trapped inside metal coffins. As life support failed and emergency systems struggled to reboot in less Then 90 seconds of actual combat. The human ship had disabled 4 out of 6 attacking vessels without destroying single one. The remaining 2 hunter ships broke formation and retreated at maximum speed, their commanders having suddenly developed a strong preference for survival over glory. Krello watched this disaster unfold with a growing sense of disbelief and rage. His hunting fleet, which had terrorized entire sectors of space for generations, was being systematically dismantled by a single ship from a species he had never even heard of before today. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was unacceptable. All remaining ships converge on the human vessel, Krello commanded, his voice shaking with fury. I don't care what it costs, destroy them. The remaining 10 Drath Hunter ships abandoned their positions around the Talan convoy and accelerated toward the Resolute in a coordinated assault formation. They came from multiple vectors simultaneously, their combined firepower representing the full might of a civilization that had built its entire existence on military conquest. Captain Chin watched them come with the same calm expression she had maintained throughout the engagement. Tactical assessment: 10 vessels incoming. Full weapons hot. They're going, Allen. Captain, her tactical officer replied. Threat level is moderate. We can handle this. Chin nodded. Helm, take us into the formation. Let's show them what happens when you bring a fleet to a gunfight. The Resolute surged forward to meet the incoming Drather armada head-on, and what followed would be discussed in militarities across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human ship didn't just fight, it danced through space with a grace that transformed combat into an art form. The Resolute's advanced combat AI calculated thousands of trajectories per second, predicting enemy movements before they happened and positioning the ship exactly where it needed to be to maximize effectiveness while minimizing risk. The vessel wove through incoming fire like a needle threading through cloth, its shields absorbing what little managed to connect while its weapon struck with surgical precision. The humans employed tactics that the Drather had never encountered. Instead of simply trading fire until one side was destroyed, the Resolute used the enemy ships against each other. It maneuvered so that Drather vessels found themselves in each other's firing solutions, forcing them to hold fire or risk fracturide. It created debris fields by precisely targeting non-critical systems, then used those expanding clouds of metal as cover and concealment. When 3 draw ships tried to box the Resolute in, Captain Chin ordered a maneuver that seemed suicidal. The human ship accelerated directly at the center vessel at maximum speed, then, at the last possible second, activated its slip space drive for exactly 3 seconds. The Resolute literally jumped through normal space, reappearing behind the Drather formation and immediately opening fire on their unshielded engines. 2 more hunter ships went dead in space, their crews frantically trying to restore power while their vessels drifted helplessly. Commander Krell watched his fleet being systematically destroyed from his flagship's bridge, and for the first time in his long career he felt genuine fear. This wasn't a battle, it was an extermination. The humans weren't just winning, they were toying with his forces, demonstrating their superiority in the most humiliating way possible. His tactical officer turned to him with wide, terrified eyes. Commander, we've Lost 8 ships, half the fleet is disabled or destroyed. We need to retreat. Krello wanted to argue, wanted to demand they fight to the last, but his survival instincts overrode his pride. He had not lived this long by being stupid. Whatever these humans were, wherever they had come from, they possessed technology and combat capabilities that exceeded the Drather by orders of magnitude. All ships, emergency retreat. Krello ordered the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Jump to random coordinates and scatter. The surviving Drath vessels didn't to be told twice. They activated their warp drives in a panicked rush, tearing holes in the fabric of space and fleeing in different directions like insects, scattering from light. Within 30 seconds, the entire Drar hunting fleet had vanished, leaving behind only their disabled ships and their shattered reputation. The space around the Talon convoy fell silent except for the quiet hum of the Resolute's engines as it maneuvered back toward the refugee vessels. On the bridge of the Wandering Light, Commander Vareth stood in stunned silent, his mind struggling to process what he had just witnessed. The nightmare that had surrounded them was gone. The Drather, the most feared force in this region of space, had been defeated by a single ship in a battle that had lasted less than 10 minutes. Captain Chen's face appeared on his viewscreen, and Vareth found himself looking at the first human he had ever seen. She had dark hair pulled back in a practical style, brown eyes that held both warmth and steel, and a face marked by the kind of experience that came from facing danger and overcoming it. Commander Vareth, Chin said with a slight smile, sorry for the delay in responding. We were conducting a survey mission 3 systems away when we picked up your distress call. Are you and your people unharmed? Ver tried to speak but found his voice wouldn't work properly. He cleared his throat and tried again. Captain Chin, we are unharmed. You saved us. You saved all 5,000 of us. I don't know how to thank you. Chen's expression softened. You don't need to thank us, Commander. Where we come from, we have a saying, no one stands alone. When someone calls for help, you answer. It's that simple. Over the next several hours, the Resolute coordinated with the Talon fleet to ensure their safety. Human engineering teams transported over to the disabled Drather vessels and thoroughly sabotaged their systems to ensure they couldn't pursue the refugees. Captain Chin provided the Talon with updated star charts, coordinates for safe passage through the neutral corridor, and even contacted the Galactic Assembly on their behalf to arrange for asylum processing. As the Talon prepared to continue their journey, now under the protection of the human escort, Vareth requested a private communication with Captain Chin. Captain, I must ask, Vareth said carefully, your technology, your capabilities, they exceed anything known to the major civilizations. Where does Earth stand in the galactic community? Why have we never heard of your people before? Chin was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Earth is relatively new to interstellar travel. Commander, we've only been exploring beyond our own system for about 50 years, but we've been fighting each other for thousands of years before that. We learned warfare the hard way, through countless conflicts that nearly destroyed us several times. When we finally united and reached for the stars, we brought those hard-won lessons with us. She paused, her expression growing serious. We also brought something else, a promise. We nearly wiped ourselves out through hatred and division, we swore that if we ever encountered other species facing oppression or extinction, we would help. Not for profit, not for territory, but because it's the right thing to do. Because no one should face the darkness alone. Ver felt his eyes filling with tears again, but this time they were tears of gratitude and hope. Your species has given mine a second chance at life, Captain. We will never forget this debt. Chin shook her head gently. It's not a debt, Commander. It's a promise. Welcome to the wider universe. You're going to find that it's bigger, stranger, and more wonderful than you ever imagined. And now you know that somewhere out there, humanity has your back. The Talvan convoy continued toward the neutral corridor, with the Resolute providing escort and across the calm channels of the refugee ships. Something remarkable began to happen. The Talvan master musicians that they were began to sing. They sang songs of sorrow transformed into songs of hope. They sang of their lost world and their found saviors. They created a new composition, one that would be performed across the galaxy for generations to come. The Song of the Resolute, a tribute to the day humanity first answered the call. Far behind them in the wreckage of his fleet, Commander Krell sent an encrypted message across Drath communication networks. The message was simple but profound. A new power had emerged in the galaxy, one that possessed technology beyond current understanding and a willingness to use it in defense of the weak. The message warned all Drather fleets to avoid any vessels bearing Earth's insignia. The age of unchallenged Drath there supremacy was over, and across the stars, in 100 different systems, the story began to spread. The story of the day. The hunter ships surrounded the aliens, and humanity arrived to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens the innocent. It was the first chapter in a much larger story, one that would reshape the balance of power across known space.